From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Thursday, September the 23rd, 2021. Democrats introduced a standalone bill to fund Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system. This after the funding was removed from the budget bill after pressure from some progressives in the Democratic Party on Tuesday. The new bill was introduced last night by Connecticut Democrat and House Appropriations Committee Chairwoman Rosa DeLauro, who said the United States' commitment to the security of our friend and ally Israel is ironclad. She said replenishing interceptors used to protect Israel from attacks is our legal and moral responsibility. And DeLauro addressed the House floor today in a debate on the bill, as did many other Democrats in support of the funding. Many speaking of Israel's recent war with terror group Hamas, who fired thousands of rockets on Israeli civilians, and spoke of the imperative to fund this critical and defensive system, urging the passage of the bill. Representative Betty McCollum, one of the members of Congress who reportedly asked for the funding to be removed from the budget bill on Tuesday, also spoke on the House floor, where she asked DeLauro to clarify if the allocated funds can be used for any offensive weapons by the State of Israel, to which DeLauro firmly responded no. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib took to the floor as well, where she attacked the Jewish state, calling Israel and its government apartheid and accusing it of war crimes. Florida Democrat Ted Deutsch then passionately responded in lieu of giving his prepared speech on the importance of the Iron Dome. He said he had to address Tlaib's comments.
I cannot allow one of my colleagues to stand on the floor of the House of Representatives and label the Jewish democratic state of Israel an apartheid state. I reject it. Today, this caucus, this body, the House of Representatives will overwhelmingly stand with our ally, the state of Israel, in replenishing this defensive system. If you believe in human rights, if you believe in saving lives, Israeli lives and Palestinian lives, I say to my colleague who just besmirched our ally, then you will support this legislation. Mr. Speaker, we can have an opportunity to debate lots of issues on the House floor, but to falsely characterize the state of Israel is consistent with those, let's be clear, it's consistent with those who advocate for the dismantling of the one Jewish state in the world. And when there is no place on the map for one Jewish state, that's anti-Semitism. And I reject that. I stand in support of this important legislation.
A vote was held on the House floor, which overwhelmingly passed 420 in favor of the Iron Dome funding, 9 against. Of those 9, 8 Democrats and 1 Republican. Israel's Defense Minister Benny Gantz, meanwhile, stressed the U.S.-Israel bond in comments he made during a Sukkot gathering today, telling the crowd our alliance with the United States is the product of deep ties between the security establishments, which are based on shared security interests and, above all, shared values. This is how it was, and this is how it will remain. German authorities are looking into an assault this past weekend that appears to have been anti-Semitic. The Allgemeiner reports that participants in a vigil of support for Israel and against anti-Semitism in Hamburg were approached by a group yelling anti-Israel slogans. When they asked the offending group to stop, one of the offenders punched one of the Israel supporters, a 60-year-old man, in the face. The victim was taken to the hospital. The offending group fled the scene. Hamburg's Commissioner on Jewish Life and the Fight Against Anti-Semitism, Stefan Hensel, said, "Violence driven by hatred of Israel and Jews is a disgrace to our city. The perpetrators must be caught as soon as possible and brought to justice." Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Thursday, September the 23rd. At 7 o'clock, the film Tango Shalom is in the spotlight on Jewish Cinematheque as Eric Goldman speaks with cast members, including lead actress Lanie Kazan. At 7:30, Rabbi Ethan Tucker talks about Israeli and American Jews. At 8:30, a look at the lone soldiers who leave their home countries to volunteer to serve in the IDF. That's on FIDF Live. And then at 9 o'clock, Mark Golub sits down with Lone Soldier Josh Warhit on L'chaim. Josh describes the ethic of the IDF as he experienced it while serving at the Lebanese border, on the West Bank, and in the Gaza War of 2014. At 10, young Jewish scholars and artists explore the tension between innovation and tradition in Jewish lives. And coming up next, it's Good Week Israel. And that's the JBS News Update for Thursday, September the 23rd, 2021. I'm Teisha Bader. Stay healthy, stay well, and Chag Sameach.